Elena Rivers moved gracefully around the kitchen, her hand resting on her swollen belly as she hummed softly to herself, a gentle smile playing on her lips. The mansion was quiet, the usual hum of staff long gone for the night, leaving her alone with the warm glow of Christmas lights that twinkled like tiny stars around the grand living room. The scent of cinnamon, nutmeg, and roasted chestnuts filled the air, wrapping the space in a comforting embrace. Every detail mattered to her. The table perfectly set with fine china, the crystal glasses catching the light, and the centerpiece of fresh pine branches, holly, and flickering candles that cast a soft, golden glow. She had spent hours preparing the Christmas Eve dinner, carefully following recipes that had once been her grandmother's, hoping to create not just a meal but a memory for her family. Tonight, she believed, might be different. Derek Hawthorne, her husband, had been distant for months, too absorbed in boardrooms, mergers, and deals to notice the growing life inside her. But recently, she had sensed a subtle shift in him, fleeting moments of softness that she clung to like fragile snowflakes. Perhaps tonight, Christmas Eve, would finally be the night they could reconnect. Elena gently lifted the silver box from the kitchen counter, her fingers brushing the smooth surface. Inside lay the gift she had painstakingly chosen and engraved herself, a silver watch with the words, "Forever, Us Three," etched delicately on the back. Her heart swelled at the thought of giving it to him, imagining his smile, imagining the warmth in his eyes, imagining a night filled with love and laughter. She placed it carefully under the tree, her mind drifting to a peaceful Christmas with Derek and their unborn child, completely unaware of the storm that was quietly gathering just beyond the glow of the festive lights. The distant crunch of tires on the snow-covered driveway made Elena's heart leap with anticipation. She rushed to the grand windows, her eyes lighting up as she spotted Derek stepping out of his sleek black car. But the familiar warmth she had hoped to see in his eyes was nowhere there. Instead, he moved with the cold, detached precision of a man who had no intention of sharing in the joy of the evening. The scent of expensive cologne hit her as he entered the mansion, sharp, overpowering, alien, a stark contrast to the comforting aroma of cinnamon and pine that filled the house. "Derek, you're home." Elena's voice quivered with excitement. She held out the silver box, the engraved watch glinting under the soft Christmas lights. Her eyes shone with hope and love, imagining the smile on his face when he saw it. But Derek's gaze barely flickered toward her gift. Without a word, he strode past her and set the box on the counter, his fingers brushing it almost dismissively. Then, with a calm that sent chills through her, he slid a thick envelope across the polished table. Elena's heart skipped. Confused, she leaned closer, her hands trembling as she opened it. Her worst fears came alive. Divorce papers. Derek's voice cut through the cozy ambience like ice. "I'm done pretending, Elena. This marriage, it's over. And the child, it's not good for my image." Her hands clutched her stomach instinctively, as if shielding her unborn child from the cruelty of his words. Tears welled in her eyes, blurring the soft golden glow of the lights. The warmth she had carefully built in her heart for this night crumbled into shards of humiliation and despair. "Why?" she whispered, her voice breaking. "Why, Derek? We can work this out." He smirked, cold and merciless, as if savoring her anguish. "You were never my type," he said, his tone sharp and cruel. "Just a charity case." Elena's world tilted, the festive cheer outside reduced to meaningless snowflakes falling silently. The man she had loved, the man she had believed in, had just turned Christmas, her most sacred night, into a nightmare etched with betrayal and heartbreak. The door slammed with a deafening finality, echoing through the grand halls of the mansion. Elena sank to the floor, the divorce papers crumpling in her trembling hands. Her tears fell freely, dripping onto the polished wooden floors, her sobs mingling with the soft flicker of the Christmas tree lights. Each ornament seemed to mock her happiness, the golden glow a cruel reminder of what she had thought would be a perfect night. For a long moment, she simply sat there, numb, clutching her swollen belly as though holding on to the last remnants of safety and hope. Her grief turned restless. Without thinking, she rose and stepped outside, the cold biting through the thin fabric of her nightgown. Snow had begun to fall more heavily, covering the manicured lawns in a pristine white layer, yet she barely noticed. Each step sank slightly into the fresh powder, her bare feet numbing with each contact with the icy ground. Her breath fogged in the night air, mingling with the warm tears streaming down her cheeks. She wandered aimlessly, her mind a storm of confusion and heartbreak, muttering desperate prayers for strength, for guidance, for anyone to save her from this unbearable pain. Suddenly, through the heavy snow, a figure emerged. An old man dressed in a classic red Santa suit, his white beard perfectly groomed, his eyes kind and piercing. He knelt beside her, offering a thick, warm coat without a word of judgment, only gentleness. "Come with me," he said softly, his voice carrying an unexplainable warmth that seeped into her frozen spirit. Hesitant but drawn by a sense of safety, Elena followed him to a waiting car, its interior heated and comforting. The lodge where he drove her was small but cozy, filled with the aroma of pine and burning wood. As she wrapped herself in a soft blanket by the fire, the old man sat nearby, his presence calm and steady. Something about his voice, the way he spoke without rushing, felt oddly familiar, almost like a memory brushing against the edges of her mind. He leaned closer, lowering his voice to a gentle whisper. "You were never alone, child." His words sank deep into her heart, a fragile thread of hope weaving through the shattered pieces of her Christmas night. Elena awoke to the soft crackle of the fireplace, the warmth spreading through her chilled body, but the old man dressed as Santa was nowhere to be seen. Her heart ached with a mixture of relief and confusion. On the small table beside her sat a neatly folded note, written in elegant, flowing script. "The truth will find you tomorrow." She picked it up with trembling hands, reading and rereading the words as if trying to extract some hidden meaning. What truth? And why tomorrow? Her mind raced, yet the comfort of the lodge and the fire's gentle glow offered a fragile sense of security. As she wrapped her robe tighter around herself, memories she had long buried began to surface. Her childhood had been a maze of foster homes and uncertainty. She had been only a child when her parents had died under mysterious circumstances, a tragedy that had left her alone, afraid, and desperate for love and belonging. In the chaos of moving from one household to another, she had found a sealed letter tucked away in her mother's old desk, a letter she had never dared to open. Fear and longing had kept it closed all these years, but now, in the quiet of the lodge, the words of Santa seemed to whisper encouragement. She realized she could no longer ignore her past. There was a piece of her identity she had never claimed, a missing puzzle that might finally explain everything. Meanwhile, far from the snow-covered lodge, Derek Hawthorne reveled in his freedom. At a lavish luxury party downtown, he clinked champagne glasses with the city's elite, Vanessa Crowe by his side, smiling as if the night had been designed solely for them. He boasted loudly about escaping the burden of his marriage, unaware that the very world he flaunted would soon begin to crumble. Vanessa laughed at his jokes, leaning close to brush her hand against his arm, but there was no warmth there, only the thrill of conquest. Yet as the night sparkled with lights and music, Elena's distant memory of her parents and the mysterious note pressed heavily on her mind, urging her to uncover the hidden truths that had always eluded her. She resolved, silently but fiercely, that tomorrow would mark the beginning of finding herself, and reclaiming what had been stolen from her. The first light of Christmas morning filtered softly through the frosted windows, casting a golden glow over the lodge. Elena, still wrapped in her robe, hesitated for a moment, her hands trembling as she approached the old trunk tucked in the corner of the room. Dust motes danced in the sunlight as she lifted the lid, revealing a collection of forgotten keepsakes, yellowed photographs, and letters tied with faded ribbons. Her fingers lingered over each item, memories of a childhood filled with unanswered questions and quiet longing flooding back. Among the bundles, a single envelope caught her eye. Thicker, more substantial, and unlike anything she had ever dared to open. The handwriting was unmistakably her mother's, delicate yet precise. With a deep breath, she broke the seal, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and anticipation. As she read, the words unfolded like a revelation, each line shaking her world. Her mother wrote of a life threatened by betrayal, of a father she had been forced to separate Elena from for her own safety. And most shockingly, the letter revealed that her real father was alive, none other than Victor Rivers, one of the most powerful billionaires in New York, a man whose empire had been shattered years ago by treacherous business partners. Elena's breath caught in her throat. The image of the old man who had appeared as Santa the night before flashed in her mind, the warmth of his eyes and the strength in his voice suddenly making sense. Tears welled in her eyes, blurring the words as disbelief and wonder collided within her. She traced the words on the letter with shaking fingers, her mind struggling to grasp the truth. The very man who had guided her through her darkest hour, offering safety and kindness when she had nothing else, was not a stranger at all. Her chest tightened with a mixture of relief and longing, and she whispered to herself, "It was you, all along." The snow outside fell silently, covering the world in a blanket of white, but inside, Elena felt the first spark of hope in years. Her Santa had been her father, watching over her, protecting her from afar. For the first time, she felt that the pieces of her past, long missing, were finally beginning to come together, and the promise of a Christmas miracle shone brighter than ever in her heart. The quiet of the early evening was shattered by the low rumble of engines approaching Elena's mansion. A convoy of sleek black cars rolled down the snow-covered driveway, their headlights cutting through the soft twilight, reflecting off the frost-laden trees. Elena, standing at the grand window, felt a strange mixture of fear and anticipation as she watched the procession draw nearer. Each vehicle carried a sense of authority and power, an undeniable presence that made her pulse quicken. When the cars finally stopped, the figure that emerged took her breath away. Victor Rivers stepped out, no longer dressed as Santa, but clad in a tailored dark coat that emphasized his commanding presence. His silver hair glistened in the soft glow of the mansion's exterior lights, and his eyes, though regal, radiated a warmth that immediately reached Elena's heart. For the first time in years, she felt the embrace of someone who truly belonged in her life. Before she could gather her thoughts, Victor crossed the distance in a few purposeful strides and pulled her into a firm, protective hug. Tears streamed down both their faces as he whispered, "No one will ever hurt you again." The words carried a weight that penetrated the icy walls around her heart, promising safety, love, and the long-awaited justice she had only dreamed of. Victor stepped back slightly, his gaze steady and full of sorrow and explanation. "Elena, I owe you a lifetime of apologies," he said softly, his voice both commanding and tender. "I had to disappear to fake my death. There were people who wanted to destroy us, people who stole everything I had built, including Derek's father. I could not risk your life or the life of my daughter, you, by staying in the open." Elena's mind reeled, the weight of the revelation settling like snow in her chest. Derek's arrogance, his cruelty, now seemed almost poetic in its irony. He had married into the very family his own father had tried to ruin, unaware of the legacy he was entangled with. A chill of justice and inevitability swept through her, a cold but satisfying anticipation of what was to come. For the first time since the devastating night that had begun with Derek's betrayal, Elena felt hope. The pieces of her shattered life were finally falling into place. Her father was here, powerful and protective, and the storm that had threatened to destroy her life was about to turn, the world itself aligning to deliver poetic, inescapable justice. The grand ballroom sparkled under crystal chandeliers, the air thick with the scent of expensive perfumes and the hum of polite conversation. Derek Hawthorne stood at the center of attention, a glass of champagne in hand, the picture of arrogance and self-satisfaction. Beside him, Vanessa Crowe clung to his arm, her laughter like music to the ears of the city's elite. Tonight, Derek was not just celebrating Christmas or his own superficial triumphs. He was celebrating the freedom he believed he had won, free from the burden of Elena and their unborn child. Raising his glass, he made the announcement with a smirk. "Ladies and gentlemen, I'm proud to announce my engagement to Vanessa Crowe. Here's to a future filled with success, luxury, and freedom." The crowd murmured, clinking glasses in polite applause. But before the champagne could fully sparkle, the doors burst open with authoritative force. Black-clad security personnel escorted a tall, commanding man through the crowd. Victor Rivers, Elena's father, stepped into the center of the room, his presence immediately silencing the chatter. His gaze was steady, unwavering, as he scanned the room and finally landed on Derek, who froze mid-toast, confusion and unease flickering across his confident face. Victor raised a hand, and his legal team produced a thick stack of documents. "Derek Hawthorne," Victor's voice boomed, echoing across the vast hall. "Your company has embezzled millions of dollars from Rivers Enterprises years ago. These documents provide irrefutable proof." Gasps erupted throughout the room. Cameras flashed as reporters pounced, capturing every word, every moment of Derek's unraveling. Derek's smirk faltered, replaced by a mask of disbelief and panic. His attempts to speak were drowned out by the chaos that erupted. Phones recorded, press members jostled for position, and whispers of outrage spread like wildfire. Overnight, Derek's empire began to crumble. His bank accounts were frozen, investors pulled out, and social media exploded with the revelation. The man who had once wielded power effortlessly was now a spectacle of disgrace. Victor stepped closer to the stunned crowd, his eyes softening as he turned to Elena. "Elena Rivers," he announced, his voice ringing with pride and authority. "You are my daughter, the rightful heir to the Rivers fortune. All that was taken from us will now be restored to you." Derek, pale and shaking, finally understood the magnitude of his failures. He had not merely lost a wife. He had destroyed his own future, trampled on the legacy of a family he never understood, and brought his own downfall upon himself. In that moment, the truth was undeniable. Justice, swift and poetic, had arrived. Elena stood on the grand marble steps of the mansion, her heart heavy yet strangely calm, as Derek Hawthorne was led away in handcuffs. The flashing lights of police cars and the murmurs of the assembled crowd created a surreal backdrop, but she felt detached from it all, as if watching a nightmare dissolve. The man who had once been her world, the one who had caused her so much pain, was finally facing the consequences of his actions. And yet, amidst the chaos, she did not feel the bitter sting of revenge. Instead, a quiet strength settled over her, an understanding that true power did not come from anger or hatred. As Derek disappeared from view, Elena whispered softly, almost to herself, "I forgive you." Her voice trembled, but there was no malice in it. She knew this forgiveness was not for him. He did not deserve it, but for the peace of the life growing inside her. She imagined the tiny heartbeat of her unborn child, a symbol of hope and resilience, and realized that holding on to anger would only shadow the light she wanted for her child. Her father, Victor Rivers, watched her from nearby, pride shining in his eyes. He stepped closer, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder and said, "You carry your mother's grace, Elena. It lives in you still." The words warmed her heart, and a sense of purpose blossomed within her. She knew that the fortune now rightfully hers was not just a tool for comfort but a responsibility. Memories of her lonely childhood, nights spent wishing for safety and love, and the kindness of strangers who had offered her fleeting solace flooded her mind. Elena decided that she would use her inheritance to create shelters for abandoned and vulnerable women, ensuring that no one would have to face the darkness alone. Victor stayed by her side, his presence both protective and steadfast. "I promise," he said, his voice steady, "to spend the rest of my life making up for lost time. You will never walk alone again." Elena felt a surge of gratitude and relief. For the first time in years, she felt truly supported, truly safe, and truly ready to embrace the life ahead. In the cold aftermath of betrayal and heartbreak, forgiveness had become her shield, and love, both her father's and her own, had become her guiding light. Months passed, and the once silent mansion now echoed with the gentle sounds of new life. Elena Rivers, radiant and exhausted, held her newborn daughter, Clara, close to her chest. The tiny fingers curled around hers, and the soft, rhythmic breathing of her child brought a sense of calm and joy she had not felt in years. Outside, the first snow of the season fell again, dusting the world in sparkling white, but unlike the snow of the previous Christmas, It no longer felt cold or foreboding. This snow carried warmth, hope, and the promise of new beginnings. The house was alive with laughter and soft coos. Elena's father, Victor Rivers, bustled about, helping to settle Clara into her nursery and sharing quiet smiles with his daughter. Every corner of the mansion seemed brighter, filled with the tangible love of a family reunited and strengthened. That same evening, Victor donned his familiar Santa suit, not as a disguise but as a symbol of the joy he wished to spread. He and Elena bundled Clara into a warm blanket, and together they visited hospitals and orphanages throughout the city. Children's faces lit up with wonder at the sight of Santa and his little helper, and Elena felt her heart swell with a happiness she had never imagined. This was her gift to the world, the spirit of Christmas manifested through love and compassion. As the snow fell gently outside their home, Elena stood at the window, holding Clara in her arms. The quiet crackle of the fireplace and the soft glow of the Christmas lights reflected in her eyes as she took a deep, steadying breath. Her life had transformed completely, from the lonely, betrayed woman who had wandered barefoot in the snow, to a powerful, beloved daughter and mother surrounded by the warmth of family. Every pain, every tear, every heart-wrenching moment had led her to this point, a full circle of loss, resilience, and ultimately joy. Victor knelt beside her, brushing a soft kiss on her forehead. His voice, tender and full of wonder, whispered, "Miracles happen, especially to those who believe." Elena held Clara tighter, smiling through tears of gratitude. In that moment, she truly understood the meaning of Christmas, the triumph of love, hope, and faith over despair, and the unshakable power of family. The following Christmas Eve arrived, draping the mansion in a soft, golden glow. Snow swirled gently outside, blanketing the world in pristine white, while inside, laughter and the scent of pine filled every room. Elena Rivers sat by the fire, her daughter Clara nestled in her arms, the tiny baby cooing softly as she gazed up at her mother with wide, curious eyes. Victor Rivers approached, holding a small, carefully wrapped box. The familiar twinkle in his eyes mirrored the sparkle of the Christmas lights, a silent promise of love, protection, and family restored. Elena accepted the gift, her hands trembling as she carefully untied the ribbon and lifted the lid. Inside lay the same silver watch she had once chosen for Derek, polished and gleaming under the firelight. The engraving on the back had been renewed. "Forever us three, Clara included." A wave of emotion swept through her, tears welling up and spilling down her cheeks. This was more than a gift. It was a symbol of her journey, of the life she had fought to reclaim, and of the unbreakable bond she now shared with her father and daughter. She looked at Victor, her eyes reflecting both gratitude and love. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "For everything, for believing in me, for being here." Victor knelt beside her, placing a gentle hand over hers, and smiled. "You never needed to find me, Elena. You only needed to trust yourself. And now our family is complete." Elena held Clara close, feeling the warmth of her family wrap around her like a protective blanket. The mansion shimmered around them, each ornament and candle reflecting the joy of a heart finally at peace. Outside, the sound of soft bells echoed in the night, blending with the gentle fall of snow. The camera panned out, capturing the serene glow of the home and the quiet triumph of love and redemption. In that moment, Elena understood fully that life had given her exactly what she had always longed for. Not wealth, not power, but a family bound by trust, courage, and unwavering love. The watch on her wrist gleamed in the firelight, a constant reminder that miracles were real, and that hope and perseverance could rebuild even the most broken hearts. The spirit of Christmas, of a father's redemption and a daughter's rebirth, shone brighter than ever.